All right. It says it's recording now, so that's good. So we'll go ahead and get started. This is the Pasco County 2015 Outside Agency Funding Technical Assistance Workshop. And, all right, my screen is working. We're at the grant funding stream. All right, for those who are not aware of where the funding comes from for the dollars that you'll be applying for, we receive an allocation of $250,000 from Pasco County government. A piece of that is from people who round up their Pasco County utility bills. You have an opportunity to do that. If Pasco County Utilities is your utility company, you can round up to the next dollar or even have a dollar amount allocated on each utility bill. A big chunk of the dollars come from there, and then Pasco County government fills in the rest to make a $250,000 pool of funding available. They fill in the rest from general fund dollars, so the rest of it is taxpayer dollars that are available. That is allocated in its entirety to United Way of Pasco County to have a competitive funding process for organizations that provide human services in Pasco County. Your organization does not have to be headquartered in Pasco, but you do have to provide services to residents of Pasco County in order to be eligible to apply for funding, and it has to be human services. I love the SPCA and the work that they do, but that's not human services. So organizations like that are not eligible. You have to provide services to human beings. Next slide. All right, so to be eligible for the funding that we have, you need to be a 501c3, classified as a 501c3 public charity under the IRS code. You need to be a not-for-profit organization that's registered not only as a corporation in the state of Florida, but recognized by the IRS as a 501c3. For those organizations who will be applying for the first time under our e-CImpact system, we'll walk you through how to do that. It will ask you for your employer identification number or your federal employee ID number, which is a 9-digit number. It will scan the IRS system to make sure that you are registered as a 501c3. If your number does not clear, it means you're not a 501c3, not-for-profit organization, or it means that you are so new as an organization that you're not yet in that database, and if you're that new, you're not eligible for funding. So it will scan. For those of you who are logging in for the first time, you need to have that number. We'll walk through that in a minute. You need to serve residents of Pasco County, and you need to provide human services. In both the agency that you're applying for, which would be like the organization, the company, that agency, and the program that you're applying for funding for, the specific services that you would like to seek funding for, both agency and program need to have been in existence for at least 1 year. A few pieces of important information. The funding process and the funding competition for the outside agency funding is incredibly competitive. We usually receive about 900,000. We anticipate this year over $1 million in requests for $250,000 of funding. We probably will have 30 to 40 programs apply for funding from this funding stream this year, and we will probably fund anywhere from 15 to 20 of them. So it's very competitive. I want to let people know not to get discouraged if you don't get funded this year. Try again in a future year. We've had this funding source for quite a while. Because you've received an award in the past out of this funding does not mean that you'll get an award again. So there is no past prediction that says you've gotten a grant award for 3 years, you're going to get a grant award this year. We look at this on a year-to-year basis. The focus is on your programmatic outcomes and not outputs, and we'll get to outcomes a little bit later. You need to be able to talk about the changes that your program is having in people's knowledge, their skills, their behavior, their life circumstances, not about how many people you actually serve. So as an example, if you're a food bank, what we want to know is how you're changing people's lives with the food that you're providing. That gets to the issue of food insecurity. How are you reducing food insecurity in the community? It's not about, I served 20,000 people last year. It's about the impact that you're making, and I want to make that very clear. It's not about number served, it's about impact. This is probably the most important screen that you will see today. We call it the fatal criteria. Because we receive so many applications for this grant, because the dollar requests are so high, it is very easy to reject a grant based on these criteria. If you do not serve people in Pasco County, and trust me, at least one agency will try to apply this year and tell us that they're serving people in Pasco County, and they're not, if the application does not utilize the forms that are required, you will input all of your data in our electronic system, but there are 2 forms you must download. We'll show them to you. You must complete them and upload them to the system. You need to use those forms. One of them is your Board of Directors form. You need to utilize the form that we provide you. If your application for any reason is incomplete, it will be rejected. If the application is late, it will be rejected. If for some reason you are not in compliance with United Way requirements for an existing grant, if you're a partner agency and your reports are late to us, or for some reason you're out of compliance with outside agency funding from the prior year, you will be rejected and will not be eligible to continue in the funding process. If you do not have a current state of Florida registration, that's another reason that you will be rejected. Please make sure your corporate registration with the state of Florida is up to date. If you do not qualify under IRS code 501c3, your grant will be rejected. And if you upload the wrong form to the wrong section of the application, it will be considered incomplete and be rejected. A good example is there's about 8 forms that you need to upload, including your 990, an audit if you have one, those types of documents. If you upload your audit twice, and it's in the 990 category and it's in the audit category and your 990 isn't there, your grant will be rejected. And I cannot be more clear about that, because that is one easy way to remove competitors from the grant application. It sounds mean, but when it comes down to reviewing these applications, everybody's working really hard to make sure that they do the grant properly. If your grant is filled out incompletely or you upload the wrong form, you have a lot of opportunity between now and the 31st to check to make sure it's accurate. Your grant will be rejected. I want to review with everybody the deadline for applications. They're due by noon, not 5 p.m., noon time on Friday, October 31st. Because when things get to the end of the line, we're all busy people, and lots of people like to work till the last minute. We will not be answering questions about the grant application after 5 p.m. on Wednesday, October 28th. If you get an error message, you're completing something and you get an error message, you can call us. We'll help you through the error message. That's a technical error. The system says you can't upload something, or the system says a piece of data is missing, but you're like, it's right here. We can walk you through those types of things, but we will not be answering questions about, what do you mean by this? What is the criteria for this? Is this what I should be putting in the grant here? Those types of questions will not be answered after 5 p.m. on the Wednesday before the grant is due. Lots of people like to call Alice or like to call me and ask lots of questions and take up a lot of time at the last minute of the process. It is not fair to everyone else, and we find it's not fair because sometimes we might not be able to get back to you fast enough. So get in the system now. Many of you have already enrolled, so that's pretty great. Get into the system now and make sure that you get your questions answered before the 28th. And then it would be even better if you submit your grant before the 28th. We can help you through normal questions that you might have. If you need some definition, explanation, or otherwise, we'd be happy to help you with that. We're very friendly people, but we won't be very friendly after 5 p.m. on October 28th. And I can't stress enough, don't wait until the last minute to complete your application. So everyone will be applying through what we call the e-CImpact system. It is an online web-based system to apply for grants from United Way. e-CImpact stands for Electronic Community Impact. So if you're wondering what this e-CImpact that we talk about is, and you will have an opportunity to go to the web address that we provide you, click on that web address, and begin the process. I want to take just a moment and go to our website, unitedwaypasco.org. I'm going to do this on the webinar, but for those of you who are in the room, our website at United Way is unitedwaypasco.org. If you go under the tab that says at the top, it says Our Work, and then you click on Funding Opportunities, it will load up the current funding opportunity for outside agency grant funding, and it will show you at the bottom of there is a resources and information section about the e-CImpact grant. There's a manual. It's about 37 pages that you can download. You don't need to do all 37 pages. It steps you through some of the reporting that you do in the system, but the very beginning of that report reiterates things that we'll talk about today about how to log into the system, about how to begin your profile, you request a grant application. Those types of things are in a training manual that's on our website if you need screenshots or other information as we go through. So unitedwaypasco.org, go to Our Work tab and go to Funding Opportunities under that tab, and you will have an opportunity to download information about the grant. So in the e-CImpact system, you'll go to the website that is on the web, was in the funding announcement as well. It's agency.e-cimpact.com, and it's slash, and it has a series of numbers after. Those numbers are 11165F. That is United Way's United Way National Code. That is actually how all of our United Ways differentiate themselves. The 11165F defines Pasco County within our United Way system. That's also what we used as the identifier for this grant. If you forget the web address, can't find it online, can't find it in your funding announcement, email Alice or myself, preferably Alice, and we'll get you the address if for some reason you forget it. Once you've gone to that web address, it should, as soon as you type in agency.e-cimpact.com, it should always forward you to our portion of that website. We'll go on to step 2. So once you go to that website, if you're a new organization to United Way, we'll go back one screen, I skipped ahead. If you're a new organization to United Way, at the very bottom of that screen, it will say, click here to create a new account. And it will start walking you through some steps to create a new account. For those of you who just went through the United Way Partner Agency funding process, you don't have to go through that process. You just type in your username and password and get yourself into the system. We're using the same system that we just went through for our partner agencies. So you click on Create a New Account, and then it should populate a screen for you that is going to tell you some important things about the grant. Go ahead and read that and then click Next. In step 3 is where it's going to ask you for your EIN number. So before you begin anything, please write down your 9-digit EIN number from the IRS, and that will help. It should pre-populate, once you put that number in, it should pre-populate the information on file with the IRS about your organization. It should have your organization official name, it should have your address, it should have a phone number if that's on file with the IRS. You can update the pieces of that aren't on there, but it should pre-populate that for you. And then in the next screen, if it asks you to create a username, we ask that you use the contact email address of the person that's typing this into the system. Your email address will be your username, and then it should ask you to create a user, or not only the username, but a password as well. The password needs to have letters and numbers. It doesn't have to have uppercase, lowercase, doesn't have to have special symbols, but it has to contain both letters and numbers. And if you're looking at the grant, anywhere along the grant application and you see a green question mark, you can hover your mouse over the green question mark and it will give you more details about that section of the grant, or like over the password section, it'll tell you you need to have letters and numbers. If you're having a little issue, it's not liking your password, you can hover over the little big green question mark anywhere in the application. It'll tell you more about that section. Next. So step 4, once you've completed all of that, this is for new agencies, by the way. Once you've done that, it should allow you to select a grant application that you'd like to apply for. If it doesn't go through this process, what it will do is it will create a kind of a screen that has a little calendar on it for you, and on the left-hand side of the screen, there should be a little box, and in bold letters it should say Request Grant Application. You can go ahead and click there, and it should lead you through the process, and it should start right into this screen here. So some people register their agency, get everything going, get a confirmation, and then leave or have to go do something else. If you log back in using your username and password, it should say Request Grant Application on the left-hand side of the screen, and it will just, the only application you can request under this is the outside agency grant. There should be one. It should already be pre-highlighted, and you click Next. It's going to ask you some questions to qualify your organization. This is the organization that it's qualifying. Questions like, are you a 501c3, which the answer is yes if you've actually gotten into the system because you've been cleared through our IRS screening tool. It's going to ask you if you provide services to people in Pasco County, and some of the other basic criteria it's going to ask before it's going to release a grant application to you. And you should get a certification by email that you passed the test. At the very end, just you might see this screen along the way. At the end of the process, it's going to ask you to go ahead and confirm everything about your agency, your EIN number, your name that's in the system, address, email, anything that you put in there, the login, username, and password. And again, please, for your login, username, go ahead and use your email address. For the password, letters and numbers, and then you're going to complete your registration by clicking at the very bottom, and you should get some type of confirmation. So this is actually the screen that you will see if you've completed your registration but then left the system and come back later to log in. And this is the screen you should see if you've been in our system before and want to go ahead and complete this application. On the left-hand side, kind of under that United Way logo, it's a little hard to see on this screen, but there's one little box in the middle, and it actually says Request Grant Application. And you'll click on that, and it will start walking you through some steps about requesting the grant application. Once you've gone through the agency side of things, you will be able to, on the left-hand side of the screen, it will change. It shouldn't say Request Grant Application anymore. In fact, it should then say something about outside agency funding, and it should have a little link that you can click for the outside agency funding application. But you might at some point see a screen like this, which is where you will assign programs. And so for those organizations who have applied for a grant before under this system, there's a drop-down menu, and if you want to apply for the same program that has been funded before, you can go ahead and use the drop-down menu. One more screen ahead, I think. Yep. You'll have an opportunity to assign an existing program. You could also create a new program. And so most that have never ever put anything into the system before, you're going to create a new program. You won't see anything in the drop-down menu, and you'll be able to create a new program. There's a link to create the new program there for you. And then from there, it will lead you through a set of screening questions about the name of the program, who the contact is, and then once you step through the menu, it'll ask you similar questions to what you got with the agency screening tool about have you been in existence for a year, those types of questions. Fill them out. We've had a couple people rush through that, and they filled it out incorrectly, and then they get a denial screen from us because it's set up to deny people who do not answer the questions properly. So if you get a denial screen because you rushed through it, get with us. We'll fix it for you. But I suggest you take your time. It's 3 or 4 questions. Just take your time, yes or no, and then go through. And then once you've done that, with this grant application, you should be able to apply for up to 2 programs. So you have an agency, which is the larger organization, and then you have the program that is providing services up under that agency. That's the terminology that we use, agency and program. So now we're going to walk through, I want to talk about focus areas, because once you create your program, one of the things that it's going to ask you is for the focus area of the program, and we have, I believe, 4 focus areas under this grant. One of them is basic needs, and basic needs covers food and housing. We also have education. That's another focus area under the grant, and we'll walk through the education components. Income or financial stability is another focus area, and health is the final focus area. So there are 4: basic needs, education, financial stability, or health. And under that, when you select that for the program focus, when you're registering a program under here, if you've registered a program before with us, it's already got a focus area assigned to it. So you don't have to do that. But if you're new, when you're going through, it's going to ask you for your name, the program name, who the contact is, and it's going to ask you focus area. It's one of the required areas for this grant. These focus areas will align other areas of the application that you will complete for us. So I want to walk through really quickly how this is going to work. If you pick a basic needs focus area, our basic needs has a community goal under there that residents who are experiencing a crisis or instability have access to a safety net to regain self-sufficiency. Under there are 2 potential outcomes. Reduced food insecurity is one of them, and stabilized housing is the other. And then it will ask you, once you're in your application, this is not part of the registration, once you're in your application, you're going to get to define a program outcome. And again, the program outcome needs to focus on changes to behavior, skills, knowledge, lifestyle. So under basic needs are food insecurity and stabilized housing are the programs that fit up under there. The next one is financial stability, and there's a community goal attached to that individuals and families in our community are able to access resources to improve financial stability and increase their assets. There are multiple community outcomes under the financial stability area. Improved employability or improved prospects for employability is one of them. New employment or getting employed is another one. Increase in household savings or creation and then investment in individual development accounts is another one under that area. Some programs work on those areas. Home ownership is an area under there, or persons moving to stabilized housing or permanent housing is under the financial stability area. So if you have a shelter program and your primary focus is providing emergency or transitional housing, you're going to apply under basic needs. Basic needs. If you're moving people into permanent housing, really more home ownership, like a Habitat for Humanity type program, you would apply under financial stability. And if the program, usually the financial stability programming and home ownership, there's a lot of financial counseling that goes into that. Getting somebody ready to obtain a mortgage, those types of things would go under the financial stability, not emergency or transitional housing. Under the education area, there's a community goal of children and adults in our community will have opportunities to reach their full potential, and there are multiple community outcomes under that area. Children being promoted to the next grade level, children showing improved grades in school, consistent attendance or attendance improvement is another area of focus. Under education also is job training, job employability skills training, not job training. Adults acquire job employability skills training. Disabled adults acquire new or necessary life skills. So anyone, not just this, these are a couple examples under there, not just disabled adults, but any life skills training. If you're doing life skills training, that's the primary work of your program, that falls under education. And I'm talking about primary outcomes, not an additional outcome or service. If you're related to emergency housing or transitional housing, and that's the primary focus of that program, but once a week you do a life skills class or you bring in people to help people with life skills, and it's incidental to the primary focus of the program, you're a basic needs program. If you have any question about the definition and you chose the wrong thing when you registered, Alice and I can change it for you. We can also help you figure out if you have questions of, well, we do this and this and this. This is the primary, but this might be considered primary. If you have any questions about that, we can help you fit into the focus area that matters for your organization or program. So we'd be happy to help you. And then the final is health. Pasco residents show improved health by gaining access to routine care. And so the community outcomes that relate to that would be showing increased medication compliance, persons with chronic illness gain understanding of disease management, decline in ER visits because they have a medical home or they have consistent medical care from you, patients showing consistent participation in mental health programming and medication maintenance. Also, mental health falls up under there as well. So if you're related to any of those outcomes or have an impact on any of those outcomes within your program, you would be health related. So typically our free clinics, low-cost clinics, medical design programs, as well as mental health programming, if that's your primary focus. You may partner with a mental health agency. You may be involved, and that may be something that another agency helps bring to your program, but that's not your primary focus. Don't apply under health. Because when people go to review this and score your application, they're looking for particular outcomes and how you're meeting those outcomes under these focus areas. So I want to walk through just some sections that you will experience within the application, and we'll make these slides available to you too. There is an agency section. When you go in and look at the e-CImpact system, can you log into e-CImpact from there? And go to, let's log in. Actually, you can log in as your own way. Just log in as the agency contact. And you click on outside agency and scroll down. Excellent. So I'm going to do this on the computer for the people who are on the webinar. Slow.
Uploaded these materials, we have to do it again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We haven't figured out how to make it so it moves from one to the other. Yet.
My favorite word.
Yet. All right, I'm getting to the same point that Alice is, but for people who are on our webinar. Okay, so once you're in the system and you're looking at your grant application, you've registered and everything's done, you've assigned at least one program, you'll see the screen that Alice has, and this is all of the forms. The top section is your agency information, that entire section of the two areas down below. And then under that is any of the programs. And so you have to complete the agency information just one time, and then you have to complete the program information for the number of times that you have put in a program. And so I just want to walk through and talk a little bit about each of these areas and some things that you will want to pay attention to as you complete your application. To access any of these, you just click on them and open it up, and it will start asking you the questions. At the bottom of every screen, once you've gone into each section, is an opportunity to save your work and mark as completed, or save your work and return to the previous page. You don't have to complete this all in one sitting. You don't have to even complete one section in one sitting. You can go in and you can answer questions, save your work, and then return to the previous screen. You can log out, go do something else, log in later, and do more. Or maybe you have a couple different people that are going to contribute to the application, and you have to go in and do your part. You can do your part, save your work, and then you can log out and let someone else log in to take care of their section of the application. As long as you're saying to save your work or save your work and return to previous page, whatever you typed in will be saved. So we ask that you do that. It usually gives you about 2 hours in the system before it will automatically log you out. If you're sitting there and you're approaching the end of 2 hours, it should give you a little message that says, are you still working on this? If you say yes, it'll give you more time on the clock. It just wants to make sure it logs you out if you walk away from the computer and you're gone for 5 or 6 hours. A couple things with the application to know. Once you're done with a section in its entirety, you want to go ahead and say save your work and mark as completed. And every time you do that, on this screen, the status will change, and it will change to in progress if you've started typing in but you're not done. It'll say completed. If you say you fill out all the sections and save your work and mark as completed, it will not let you click on save my work and mark as completed if there's blanks in the application you haven't completed a section. Once all of that is done, it will then let you submit the entire application. So I'm going to go back to the slide section. You can until the application is submitted. So if something wakes you up in the middle of the night on a form that you've already completed and you think I should add that to it, or oh, I forgot to say this, you can go back and edit a form even if you've marked it complete. So under the agency section, there's an agency information link for you to update information about your agency. And so you just want to make sure that everything in there is correct, that your name, the organization's name is correct, that your address is correct. You should have done that with your profile, but it's one more opportunity to check to make sure things are correct. There's an additional information section. It's going to ask you the number of employees, the number of volunteers that your organization has, and ask you to complete information about your board of directors. So how many directors are you supposed to have according to your bylaws? How many directors do you have? Ask those questions just in a fill in the blank. That is, make sure you answer all those questions. There is a section called Patriot Act Compliance. For those of you who have never completed an application with United Way before, this may seem unfamiliar to you. All organizations that we release money to have to be in compliance with certain sections of the Patriot Act to make sure that we are not providing money to an organization that then funnels money to terrorists. So that's part of our national standards. Part of that, for those who are not aware, United Way is United Way worldwide. And so within our United Way system, there's an opportunity to designate to United Ways outside of the United States. And so we take great pride in the fact that we make sure that our money goes where we say it's going to go. And we don't want to support anybody who is, not a good person, I suppose. So go through. It's a drop-down menu. It's probably 8 or 10 questions. Yes, no. Or actually, I think in that section, complies or does not comply is the answers to those. I'm pretty sure that everyone in this room complies, but if you don't complete that and certify to us that you comply, your application will be incomplete. If you want to say. All right. So after that, there's also a section that says supporting application documents. This is an opportunity for you to upload about 8 different things. Your 990, your agency budget, something we call a certificate of review, and that's one of those forms that you need to download, certify, sign, and re-upload. Certification of corporate registration, which you can get from sunbiz.org. Sunbiz.org if you don't have it in your files. The current roster of your board of directors, which is the other form. Those are the 2 forms you have to download from us, complete on our form, and re-upload the certificate of review and your current board roster. You'll also want to upload a financial statement or an audit. Some organizations are not audited. You're not large enough or do not have the finances to do an audit. You should have a complete financial statement for us to review if you are not audited. And you need to upload that. Upload that you are certified with the state of Florida, registered with the state of Florida to make charitable solicitations. And optional is to upload marketing material or outreach material from your organization. You have the opportunity to upload 1 document. So if you want to scan several things into 1 document and upload that 1 document, that's fine. Anything you want our reviewers to look at, marketing materials, brochures that you might distribute to the community that help explain what your organization is about, flyers, any of that can be uploaded under marketing material. It's optional. It is just 1 segment of the application that you can do some additional work and upload something. Again, it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be beautiful. If it's what gets your point across as to what your organization does, if you distribute that to the community, that's what matters. So if you want to share that with us, the marketing material is optional. No, only paper documents.
Underneath the size limit on that submit is what it was for the agency.
Yes, it's the same size limit.
So people might want to make their PDF today smaller than normal size.
Yes. Yes, and there is an opportunity to change the resolution of the PDFs before you upload them. If you get a size error message, we can help you through that to reduce the size of your PDF. Some agencies, the 990 is extensive or the audit is extensive, and it will reject it based on the size, file size, and we can help you reduce that. Frank?
Yeah, so what I had to do was upload and save 1 document at a time because I initially tried to upload them all and save them.
And I would suggest that because I think that that's the way the system will work. When you're in there and you see all these files on 1 page under the supporting documents page, and we'll walk through some of these, and I'll just navigate you through the application. But if you click Browse, find your file on your computer, upload it, go to the bottom and save it before you put the next one in, and just go through that process so that it'll show you that your document is in there. Why is this not clicking? It's not going. Apparently my computer has a mind of its own and doesn't want to continue the slide presentation. There we go. Okay, I went through that already. The supporting application documents, just want to remind everybody again, the certificate of review and the current board roster. There's a resource center that you can see on the left-hand side of your home screen, which has those that you can download and enter onto the forms. So you know what it is. The current board roster asks you for the names of your board members, the position on the board, and it asks you also to complete at the top how many board meetings you have a year, 4, 6, 8, 12. And it asks you to note the attendance for every single board member of your organization, how many meetings of the last year that they've attended. Part of that gets to not the screening process, but the scoring process. One of the questions in the scoring process is about your board engagement. And part of the engagement is attendance at board meetings. And then that's on there, and I think that's all that's on that form. The other one, we call it the Certificate of Review, which goes through certain certifications that the executive director, CEO, program director, whoever's in charge of the program or organization, and then your board chair or board president both need to sign the certification. And it certifies that they're aware that you're applying for the grant, and that you have approval under your board's instructions to apply for the grant. It asks you to certify several other things about your organization, and at the bottom of it is a ton of documents that it says by certifying, if you're awarded a grant, that United Way can request from your organization within 3 days. So it could be a monthly financial statement or other information. And if you don't supply those, if you can't supply those or don't or won't, then I would not apply for the application because you won't be able to sign the certification. We have yet to have to request any of those documents from an agency, but it allows us, if we start hearing something in the community about the solubility of an organization that we're providing grant funding to, or other issues that might be arising, we might want to take a look at financial statements, have access to a board of directors, those kind of things to ask those questions of. We haven't had to do it, but this is taxpayer money that we're using. We want to make sure that we have access to the documents if we need. And someone online has asked me to repeat the questions from the audience so that they can hear them and know what we're talking about. So I will do that. All right, in your program section are all these different areas. One of them is your funding request, and in there you want to go ahead and put in how much you're requesting for the program. Keep in mind that this is a $250,000 pool of money, so please don't ask for $250,000. Just, I wish we could, but we won't. And then if you received an allocation in the prior year, the prior 12 months, go ahead and put that in there. If you did not receive an award or have never applied before, or did not apply last year actually, go ahead and put 0 in that section, and that's fine. Probably about $18,000 to $20,000 last year was the average award. Oh, for those who are online, thank you, Alice. The question was, what was the average award in the last year? And the average award in the last year was about $18,000 to $20,000. It's going to ask you also for the program description. So if you would include in there, it's going to ask you about the primary goal of the program and the primary proposed outcomes for the program in a narrative fashion. It will ask you for that. It's going to ask you to complete a question called the impact snapshot. And what we want you to focus on here is if you're awarded grant funding, how are we going to help you as an organization meet some type of unmet need that you know about? Most people in this room are providing services, and the services you provide don't meet the entire need in the community or the entire need that you know about. So we want to know how you're going to help with this funding meet unmet needs, and how is this funding allocation going to increase your impact as an organization? And so I will tell you this, the answer to how is it going to enhance your impact is not we're going to do more service. Focus on outcomes. Focus on the impact of your organization. We know you're going to do more service. That's the nature of what you do. But that is not the answer to that question. And then it's going to ask you also about your outreach and collaboration. And so you can talk about collaborative relationships that you have with organizations that are formal and informal there. But there is a section that also asks you about formal partnerships and collaborations. And in the formal partnerships and collaborations section, to complete that, you can put the word none if you have none, and that's okay. But what we're looking for in there is for you to list any collaborative partnerships or relationships which are governed by some form of document in writing. So a memorandum of understanding, an agreement between two organizations that's drawn up as a piece of paper that you're going to help us on a monthly basis by providing these services to our programs. We're asking for formal collaborations to be completed in that section. If you don't have any, that's okay. You don't have to answer. You have to answer the question, put the word none. But if you don't, you might be a small program. You might be the sole provider in a particular area of the community. You might not. You might be newer and not have established formal partnerships and collaborations. It's okay if you don't have them. It's just one of the questions of the application. We're trying to find out where in the community people have formal partnerships and collaborations which are governed by some type of written document, contract, memorandum of understanding, memorandum of agreement, something like that. It doesn't have to be fancy. It could be a one-pager. You don't have to include it here in your application, but if you have it, go ahead and list it, and many of you do. The question for those who are on the web, do we want all of them listed? I would, for the program that you're applying for, I would list the primary. If you have multiple, I would list the primary, maybe 3 or 4. Kelly's asking because FCADV requires this for domestic violence centers, and you probably have close to 50 or more formalized partnerships. Yes.
Earlier, you had said that the program needs to be in existence for a year.
Yes.
Does that mean it has to be in existence in Pasco County for a year?
No. So the question for those who are on the web, the program needs to be in existence for a year. The question was, do you need to be in existence in Pasco County for a year? And the answer is no. If the program has been in existence elsewhere and your organization is skilled at delivering those services and you want to bring them to Pasco County for the residents of Pasco County, that is eligible to apply for grant funding. The most important section of your document and your grant that you will complete is the outside agency outcomes matrix. For those of you who have been through the funding process before, we have asked you to complete a legal size sheet of paper that steps through all these segments of our outcomes matrix, which gets to helping you provide program outcomes. And this is done through a one-sheeter now, and when I go into the actual computer system, I'll show you how you can see it not only in a narrative fashion, but you can also see it as a graphic as you complete it. It's going to ask you to select a community goal, and this community goal is actually defined by the focus area that you put in for your program when you register your program. So you will have, when you go to click on the community goal, you'll have one community goal that you can pick from, and it's related to the program that you defined within the system. From there, it's going to ask you to pick a community outcome. So let's use basic needs for an example. It's going to have a community goal of helping families or individuals who are experiencing a crisis. That'll be the community goal that you select. It'll be the only one that's there. And then under the community outcome, it's going to ask you, are you helping to reduce food insecurity, or are you helping people find stabilized housing? And so you pick one of those. And then the part that you get to define is your own programmatic outcomes, including the indicators, what data source you use for them, measurement, as well as specific strategic objectives for the program, and then activities that you're going to do to meet those objectives and the resources you need to meet them. And it sounds very kind of academic right now, but I'll go into the system and show you how that all gets put together, and really helps when you do it right and you design strong outcomes for a program. You make very clear to the people who review our applications what impact you are going to have on a certain segment of the community. And I'll show you when we get through with the slides, I'll show you walking through how that's going to work. Next. It says view diagram. I'll go through how you do that. Within the outside agency outcomes matrix, at the very top of that program form is something called view diagram. You can actually click that and see a graphical representation of all the information that you typed into the outcome, and that's what I want to show you. Your graphical outcome will look something like this. And it starts with the community goal at the very top, and then the community outcome. And here's an example, actually, of how it all feeds together. It starts with the resources. This is an example food program. At the very top, it's going to have your organization and your program that you're working on and what resources you say that you're going to use to meet this particular goal. So this is a food program for homebound seniors. They're going to feed 100 homebound seniors, so that's one of the resources they need is food. They need a warehouse space, or they're utilizing warehouse space to do this. They need volunteers trained to deliver food and do safety checks on the seniors that this program impacts. Those resources help feed specific activities that they're going to do. Weekly, they're going to deliver food to homebound seniors, and weekly, they're going to also have volunteers who are going to help them process food delivery requests. And then on an ongoing basis, they're going to recruit and train, and to cut it off, recruit and train volunteers to do these. And those activities are going to help them meet a very specific objective of delivering food boxes with enough food for 1 month to seniors in their homes. And that the volunteers, when they do that, are going to visit with the seniors to ensure that they're safe and that their well-being is good. That is helping them reduce food insecurity, and specifically helping them reduce food insecurity for a population of 250 seniors that they're working with. So 250 seniors are going to receive this monthly supply of food delivered to their home. That helps meet the community goal of reduce food insecurity, and again helps us with the safety net as this community goal, the safety net to regain self-sufficiency or to become stable if they're experiencing a crisis. So that's the graphical side of things. You're going to type it in a narrative format, but you can look at the graphical to see how all the pieces fit together. You're also going to have an opportunity to complete the program target population. It asks for a ton of statistics. You scroll through there, and some of you might freak out about the number, bless you, the number of statistics that you are asked to complete within there. We only ask you, this is the only area of the application where you can leave things blank. If you don't collect the statistics, don't answer the question. We only want you to put in there statistics for the things that you collect. Different organizations have a different capacity to collect information, so you might be collecting only gender, ethnic information, and age information. If that's what you collect, put it in the system, let us know that information, and answer those questions. Leave the rest of it blank. Some look at the household composition. How many people are in the household? What are the ages of the children? What are the genders of every member of the family? And you get very specific and you get very detailed about the information you collect. If you have it, go ahead and put it into the system. If you don't collect it, don't put it in there. This is the only place you have permission to leave stuff blank. So don't freak out when you see that section. If all you collect is the gender of people in your program and the age, just put that information. How many people do you serve between the ages of 0 and 5, 6 and 10, that type of thing. We don't want it to be overly complicated. We know we have small organizations, small programs in the community that don't collect that and don't have the time, the energy, or the resource to collect that information. So don't freak out when you see it. It asks you to complete a program budget. This is different. You're asked to upload an agency budget under those supporting documents. So whatever format your organization uses for their overall organization budget, just scan it and upload it. But you're asked to complete a program budget. And so it's going to ask you for the revenue sources and the expense sources of your program budget. When it's asking you for 2014 data, go ahead and complete actual 2014 data projected through the end of your fiscal year for 2014, or if you actually just completed, like United Way just completed our fiscal year June 30th, that was our 2014 fiscal year, you can use those numbers as 2014 for the program, and then for 2015, use whatever is budgeted. And so that's what we're asking you to complete. Just fill in the blanks, and it should auto-calculate your revenue, and it should auto-calculate your expense, and then it should also, once you press save, and then once it is all in there, it should auto-calculate whether you have any surplus or deficit for the program.
For target population, are you going to ask specific to Pasco County, or is it for all counties?
The question that we had was, when we're asking for the target population, if it's Pasco County or if it's elsewhere, the data that we would like to know about the target population is for Pasco County. Yes?
If your program and your organization is the same,
Mm-hmm. You will want to upload both. The question was, if the program and the organization are the same, and some are like this, do you want just the program budget or just the agency budget? You will type in the program budget, and then you will use whatever it is that you have, scan it, and upload it if you're the same. And then that way both are checked off. There's a section asking for budget narratives. Go ahead and complete that information in there. Document any reasons that you might have a deficit and what you're doing about it. Some of them are really small, and it shows a deficit on the budget, but perhaps you're using surplus funds from a prior year, or there's another issue creating the deficit. Go ahead and explain why you have a deficit. It asks if you have an agency deficit and a program deficit. So answer both of those questions, please. And it also asks you to indicate the number of reserves that you have available, forecast as the number of months. It might be 0, and that's okay, but we want to know if the agency has any particular reserves, program reserves, or actually agency reserves available. And then the final thing, I think it's the final piece of the application there, it's asking for outside agency additional funding sources. This is for the program. So if you have other funding sources for your program, we want to know about them, because we would like to know that the $18,000 grant that we're going to provide to your program that you've requested is not the only piece of funding that you're asking somebody for. So you might be having a fundraiser. You can put fundraiser in there and then go ahead and put in there the dollar amount that you anticipate you'll raise from that and the status. If it was approved, meaning like a fundraiser was completed and that's a final number, whether it's pending, you're going to have it in a couple months and this is just projected. This goes for grant applications and other items that you might be looking for, and we use the words approved, pending, or denied for all of that. So you might have applied for a grant from a private foundation. You just submitted it 2 weeks ago. You don't know. Go ahead and list that you applied for a $20,000 grant and it's pending. We just like to know that you're trying to reach out to other places in the community to seek funds besides us. This is for the program, not for the agency. Once you're all done in the system and you've gone through everything, you've filled in all the blanks, and you've put for each section, save my work and mark as completed, it will then, on the screen that you will get at the home screen, you will then get a button to submit your application. That is the only time. Everything has to be completed and you have to mark your work, save, and mark as completed. Then it will pop a button up to submit the application. Once you submit the application, it cannot be undone. By some miracle, Alice and I might be able to make it be undone. I've not had to try that yet. We probably don't want to try that. So please just check everything before you submit it. And once you submit it, you don't have to call us to ask us if we got the application. To the main contact for your application, you should get an email that says your application has been submitted. And it should give you that confirmation that you can then put in a file that says it's in the system. And you know, if you called me like October 20th, it's probably good. If you call me 4:59 on October 28th, it's like, okay, we'll try. We try to be as nice and as helpful as possible, but we know that sometimes things happen, but we really don't want people waiting till the last minute. And it's an opportunity for you to ask us. This type of application is not easy for everyone. We understand that. And so if you start now and start going through the application and you have questions for us, what do you mean by this? Or I typed in this information. Is this the type of information that you're looking for? Or this is the outcome we have for our program. Do you think this is a strong program outcome? We'd be happy to talk to you and either make it stronger, answer the question, and say, yeah, that's exactly the type of information that the reviewers are going to look for. We don't review your applications for the final decision. We review it and we give notes and information to our review committee, but we are not the ones who are making the determination as to whether or not you get funded. And so I'm happy to answer questions as to, I don't read minds, but I know the type of things that our review committee is looking for. And so when you submit your application or you have questions, go ahead and reach out to Alice or myself. It might take a little bit of time for us to get back to you, but if you're asking before the deadline, we'd be happy to help you. So you certainly can ask us information. Again, a few notes about the application. There is an outcomes focus. That outcomes matrix is the most important part of the application. Second to that is when you go through it is what's called the impact snapshot, and that's where you're telling us the unmet need and your impact that you'll have in the community by getting this funding. Both of those are the most critical parts of this application. I'll give you an example of a community goal that we already have in the system. This is the basic needs goal. And if you picked the community outcome of reduced food insecurity, we want to know, you already saw this in the application, so you're going to help as a program reduce food insecurity as well under that. So how are you going to know that you're doing that? How do you know? That's really what it gets to with the indicator in there. How do you know that you're reducing food insecurity? We ask you to be pretty specific. So how many people? Tell us how many people you're going to work with within that outcome. Where are they located? Because do you want to be, the big question at the end of the day is, what do you want to be held responsible for? Do you want to be held responsible for reducing food insecurity in the entirety of Pasco County? Or do you want to be held responsible for reducing food insecurity in a neighborhood or in Holiday or in Zephyr Hills? So if your organization doesn't have the capacity to reduce food insecurity from across Pasco County, then get really specific with your indicator as to the neighborhood that you're working in. If you don't have the possibility of influencing the entirety of unemployment rates in Pasco County, then get specific. If you're West Pasco County or you're Newport Richey. So be specific within there, because that's, at the end of the day, what we'll all be held responsible for. So that's why we have community goals. That's a broad goal. Lots of different organizations working toward those community goals. But your organization does a part of that. Your organization doesn't have to be responsible for doing the entirety of that. So when you're putting your outcomes together and you're citing indicators in there, be specific. It's asking for a data source and timing of measurement. Your data source to know if you're meeting the needs, maybe it's academic related, or you're asking, maybe it's life skills. Let's use life skills as an example. Maybe it's life skills. So you might have some type of pre and post test that you administer, even short, or a pre and post test with some type of counselor or some type of individual that's asking and surveying an individual to find out if they have these skills before training is offered, and then afterwards you interview them as to whether or not they believe they have greater skills within that area. So that might be the measurement that you do a pre and post test or pre and post interview with somebody or an individual or a group of people. That might be how you gather your source to know if you're meeting the particular outcome. I'll give you the example. I think the final one I have, it just is about education. So you might have a generic outcome. It might even be more specific than this, but you're going to help 20 students at Ritchie Elementary School improve their academic performance. Okay, academic performance is pretty broad. There are a lot of factors that influence academic performance. So you want to get even more specific with your outcomes. How are you going to measure that? Maybe you're going to help them improve their attendance at school. Maybe they don't attend school as often as they should. And so you're going to help with the attendance issue, and you're going to measure that. But we want to know, when you measure that, how are you going to get that information? Do you have parent permission to get report card information that shows you their attendance in school? Do you have permission to get a report from the school as to whether or not they're attending? So please don't put things on here that you don't have the ability to obtain that information. Maybe you're going to work on third grade. You're working with these students, and you're going to look at their FCAT scores at the end of third grade when they're going into fourth grade. Maybe you're looking at their grades in specific areas. Those things all feed up into a broader goal of academic performance. So get specific. And we ask you to complete up to two outcomes per program. We don't need like 20 outcomes. We need your two primary outcomes. So let's use academics for an example. You're putting in there that you're going to be measuring their attendance in school and their grades. And you're going to show that from each quarter their improved attendance, or they're going to have 0 absences, or they're going to have 1 absence when they've had 8 per quarter before. Go ahead and put that in there. And their grades are going to improve by 1 letter grade between the beginning, the first grading period and the end grading period of the year. That's a little more complicated because we're talking about education, but be specific. And again, at the end of the day, these are things that you'll report back to United Way on. If you're awarded a grant, you'll be reporting on a quarterly basis as to your progress toward these outcomes. So if it's not something where you can get a hold of the information, it's not something that is easy to get a hold of, or you've never had a relationship with the school system before, I'd get to working on that, because if you can't, you're not going to be able to report on it. If you can't report on it, then we cannot continue to award you grant funding throughout the year. We haven't had that happen. but I'm just letting you know we have more and more organizations applying for funding, and so I'm sure we'll cross that bridge at some point within the funding cycle that somebody has said something in a grant application that they're not able to deliver on. That it looks good, and we review that, and it sounds good, but when we get down to real details, and they're asked to give us a report on a quarterly basis about it, they might not be able to give us that information. So we do. I'll tell you this. Maybe you. We'll use academics again as an example. Maybe you go in and you've had a relationship with an elementary school or a principal or somebody, and you've been getting information about a cohort of kids you're working with, and something happens and you're not able to get that information anymore. When you go through the reporting process, there will be the ability to tell us that. Maybe you need to change your outcome. Maybe there's something else you're going to measure between the time that you get you put your application in versus maybe your mid-year and something happens. Couple other things, just so you know, the application is due by the 31st at noontime. The application will be reviewed during the month of November. Recommendations will be made to our board of directors at their December 10th board meeting, and then awards will begin in January. And it's a 12-month award, goes from January 1 to December 31st. Usually grant payments are made mid to the end of the month, every month, as an electronic deposit to your checking account. We get that all squared away once you get an award. Don't worry now, I don't need that information now. But once you get an award, we do direct deposit to your checking account, and then you will be reporting through the same e-CImpact system that you did your application in. So online, for folks that are online, if you have questions, if you will type them into the question box, we will try to answer them. And for people who are here, does anyone have questions? We will, in just a moment, step through just a couple pieces of the application. I want to show you some things. Any questions yet? Everyone's really excited now, right? Okay, so to give some comfort to people who have never done an application through this system before, for those of you who have, because you just completed a partner agency application, could you give them some feedback as to how easy it is to get in and complete things in the system?
Sure, I will. The system actually works really, really well. You get information. If you leave a blank, it will not let you move forward. It saves your information. Just remember, you need to go out of it in the middle of a page, click save. That's the only mess up that's going to happen, really, within this system. The only one I found, but that was my fault because I hadn't clicked save when I went back to check something else. So hit that save button at the bottom. The instructions are all there. You've got the number of characters that you are allowed, and it gives you that count. So double check that. If you're copying and pasting, which I have a tendency to do, to write things in a Word document, double check them and put them in. That's it. But if you can copy and paste from your Word documents, I love this system. I thought it was fabulous. And I finished my grant before, and I sat for about a week going back in to double check everything because I was scared to push that button. No, I have asked you guys. Everything. Eleanor was hitting me. Did you push the button?
So the scariest part is pushing the submit button.
Yes, that is true. The system works great.
All right. So don't get too worried. And we're here to help. There is a manual online as well. Just remember, you can go to the United Way website, a manual with screenshots that will walk you through certain parts. If you absolutely need like one-on-one technical assistance, if it's early enough in the process, you could set a time to come to our office and talk to Alice or myself, and we'll actually sit with you at the computer in our office and walk you through the same things that you're going to see at home or in your office when you go back to your program or your organization. I'm going to go into the e-CImpact system now, and I just went into the United Way application.
One thing that I did as far as all those documents that you need to upload is I got all of those together and had them all in just a file on my desktop that I can open up really easily and just upload them one at a time. So, rather than kind of searching all over, you just take a little bit of time, get them organized, and then just like you have them for any other grant that you're going to write, they're all right there. Because you need those same documents for pretty much every grant.
That we're not doing it and scrambling over the document.
Absolutely. You know exactly where they are, and you can rename them. You know, so this year is, and once you got them scanned into your computer, you need to.
I don't know why. Okay, so I just want to walk through a couple things so that you will see them. Just so you know, this is once you're all registered and in the system and have a program in the system, you will see generally the same home screen every time. And on the left-hand side, you'll click Outside Agency Application for Funding. That's how you'll get into your application every time. At the bottom there, on the left-hand side, is where you see the Resource Center. That's where you'll download their certificate of review, and you'll download your current board roster. Those are the two documents that you have to make sure that you upload, sign, fill out, complete it, and then re-upload it into the system for us. It is likely that if you don't fill out that form, that you won't answer all of the questions that it wants to know. So go ahead and download them from our system and get them uploaded. I do want to show you where the supporting application documents go as part of the application. So you click on supporting application documents. That's one section for your organization. Mine is slow. There we go. All right, and these are all the documents that you need to upload, and this is the one that Frank was suggesting, that you do them one at a time. You browse to find the file. You go ahead and you upload it, follow the instructions, and push Save/Upload Attachments, and do that for every one of them. Don't upload them all and then push Save and Upload. And again, here's an example of the green question mark. If you hover over the green question mark but you don't click on it, it will give you some more information about that section of the application, some hints or information. And like on the certificate of review, the authorization for applying for the grant, we don't care how you get it. It could be email, telephone, it could have been in a board meeting. The other thing to know, some organizations, from a grant perspective, their board of directors approves applications for grants as part of the budget process. So if you go through your budgeting process and based on your revenue projections for the year, if your board approves your grants that way, that you should apply for everything that was approved within your forecast revenue for the year, you can use the date that your budget was approved as the approval for filing for this grant. You don't necessarily have to have it documented as part of a board meeting. You could get an email, just let your board members know that if you're allowed to have email votes, that you're going to be applying for X number of dollars for the outside agency grant, and what day that was approved by email. All those work, because on the certificate of review, it asks you the question of on what date was approval for this application to apply for the grant. What date did the board grant approval to apply for this grant? And again, it doesn't have to, if your budget was approved in January and that's where you get your approval process, it can be a January date to apply for this grant if you thought you were going to apply for it. All those are the documents that need to be uploaded as that supporting agency documents. When you're in here, you can always go back and click on outside agency application for funding after you click save, and it will go back to the main area with all the forms. And then the other one I want to show you is the outside agency outcomes matrix. And within there is where you're going to be selecting all these pieces of the, if you go on that outside agency and then scroll down. Right, yeah, the matrix, right there. So this is where you're going to have an opportunity to select all of your information for the for your outcomes matrix, starting with a community goal. And so whatever you define as the program, there will be one community goal for you to go ahead and click in and save it and close it. And then the community goal will be selected. The community outcome is when you will have one of several things to select. This one is a financial stability program, so I'm just going to select that one. And you can have more than one outcome, so you might select a second one. Oops. Okay. That's an issue. Yeah, I went, if you refresh the screen, it'll actually be in there for you now. Because we're working in the same application. Go, actually, you can't refresh. No, you can't. Here. Go back. Should be in there. Okay, so both of those are in there. You can click on there and define those. The third one, the program outcome, is the one that you can go ahead and create, and that's where it's going to ask you for your indicator and other information. Again, there should be green arrows as you go through to hover over if you need a greater definition. And I'm trying to look for this. At the very top of the outside agency matrix section, on the right-hand side is where you can click the button that says View Diagram, and it should populate the information that you need. And as you put in the program outcome, the objectives, the activities, the resources, that's where you'll be able to see that as you put it in. If you need a graphical, side of things. That's the only one that you can view the diagram from. So you click on the outside agency matrix, and then you click the button View Diagram. We're going to be uploading the webinar from today to our website. It'll probably be up by Monday. And then the guide will be there, and I'll also upload the slides from today as well. So if you need to watch the webinar, or you have someone else in your office or a volunteer who helps you with this work, they can go ahead and watch the webinar and the questions that we answered today. And then Alice and I are also here to help. So let me figure out how to ask these people if they have any more questions. I'm still in a webinar. Any questions from people on the webinar? Yes. Yes, you may. The question that we had here is whether or not the grant dollars that are here can be used towards salary, and the answer is yes. Yes, you can actually go, the question is, can you get a copy of everything that you submitted? You can go back into the system after it's been submitted. You should be able to access those different areas. At the very bottom of the entire application, there should be an option to export to HTML or export to PDF, and you could print the entire thing or just save the entire document. And if you export it to HTML or to PDF, you should be able to copy and paste information if you're filling out another grant application for somebody else.
It's showing on the screen here on this particular page. When I hover over it, it can tell you can export this form to HTML, or the other form that Doug was referring to, you can export to PDF.
Mm-hmm. So you can do each section if you wanted to, and you can also do the entire application if you're in the entire application view. You can do them actually as you go along if you wanted to, I believe, because I think these will let you export them as you're working in them. Yeah, as you're working in this, you can export to HTML, and it will pull up what you've written, the questions and what you've written already.
I was going to say, if you wait till the end to print it, it prints out like the date you submitted on by room with all the headings and all put together. So I found it easier to just wait till it's done and then submit it all.
Any other questions? Anything anybody wants to know?
The board approval,
Mm-hmm.
what form do you want the board approval?
All you have to do for us is write on the certificate of review form. It's going to ask you the date that it was approved, and that's all it asks you for. So however you get the approval in your office for your board is based on your bylaws or your regular procedures. And so go ahead and do that, and we just need the date that it was approved. So if you did an email vote and everything, you got enough votes by today, you can put today's date. So you and your board chair will end up signing that form. Other questions people have? Frank?
If you already have the partner agency application in and you have two approved programs or programs you're submitted for, but for the outside agency, it's one different from the other one. Do you have,
Well, what will happen is if you want to apply for the same programs, but this different stream of funding, at the very beginning of the process, when you're assigning programs to the application, it'll let you pick one of the programs you've already submitted for. You'll have to enter information again, but it will let you pick one of those. All your basic information will be in the system, the name of the program, the contacts, all that information. But when you go, if you want to submit for a different program than anything you've submitted before, when you're assigning those programs, there is a link to enter a new program. You will. Yeah, either way, you have to answer the questions because these questions are a little different than the other application. A lot of them are the same, but some of them are different. Anything else? All right. Well, we'll be here for a few minutes if you have individual questions.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.